Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover here today. We're starting here once again with Insomniac Games and how apparently Insomniac is teasing their really ambitious roadmap and also making it known that they are very much aware of fan expectations. Now, we recently just covered how they talked about Wolverine and how they're not quite ready to show it off yet, and it's clear that they're eager to, but they have to be patient themselves. When the time's right, they're going to show it. But they are sitting here saying that even though Ted Price is retiring after over 30 years, they have an extremely ambitious roadmap that they are still aiming for. And honestly, I think we know what that roadmap is. We're not supposed to know. But because of the Insomniac hack that took place at the end of 2023, we saw that roadmap that went all the way up to like 2032 or 2033. And it was actually pretty insane looking. There was a Venom game on there. There were multiple X-Men games. There was a sequel to Wolverine. There was Spider-Man 3. There was a new IP. There was a new Ratchet and Clank game. So when they talk about this really ambitious roadmap, this is what I'm thinking of. And this is what I assume they're alluding to here. They also go on to say that they are very much aware of fan expectations, and I think this has to do with two things. Number one, just the overall release cadence expected from Insomniac Games. The truth is, this studio has garnered a reputation, a well-earned reputation, of just being able to output games at a, frankly, staggering rate. High-quality games at a rapid rate. That's a reputation they've earned. So I think that that's part of this expectation they're talking about. But also I think when we look at Wolverine, there's this expectation from fans of like, you have to basically do for Wolverine what you did for Spider-Man in 2018 when you took on a Spider-Man game. And so the expectations are extremely high. So it'll be really interesting to see if we end up hearing from Insomniac Games in 2025 when it comes to not just Wolverine, but maybe something else like that rumored Venom game. We'll have to wait and see. But continuing to talk about Insomniac Games, they also say here that they are interested in game-to-screen adaptations. This is something that they also mentioned, and I don't think that this is surprising at all. We see how serious Sony is with PlayStation Productions, and how PlayStation Productions is actually doing really well. In their Variety interview, they say, I think back to the Ratchet and Clank film from several years ago, and we kind of got an early start on that. So, of course, we're interested in that kind of thing. We love Ratchet and Clank in particular, he said. So they're almost maybe teasing potentially something in the works with PlayStation Productions and Ratchet and Clank. But yeah, it would make a lot of sense for them to pursue that. Moving on to the next topic, we're talking about Gran Turismo 7 and how, according to Circana's Matt Piscatella, it is now the series' highest grossing title in the US, which is, I would say, maybe not that surprising, but good news overall for the series. Gran Turismo is Sony's best-selling series to date, and I would assume that GT7 has sold very well across both PS5 and PS4, but he says Gran Turismo now ranks first in dollars and fifth in units among all Gran Turismo franchise releases. So in terms of unit sales, it's ranking fifth, so it still has a ways to go to get to that number one spot, but it's making them the most money, comparatively speaking, which is, I would say, good news overall for Polyphony Digital. It'll be interesting to see if GT7 over time can get to the fourth, third, or second, or maybe even first spot in terms of total units sold. Moving on to the next topic, though, continuing to talk about PlayStation Productions. This one was maybe a little bit surprising. It's being reported by VGC. A rebooted Resident Evil movie is reportedly in the works, with major studios said to be currently bidding for a new film produced by PlayStation Productions. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the next movie based on Capcom's popular survival video game series will be directed by Zach Kreger, the actor and writer who helmed 2022's horror film Barbarian. So this is something that I honestly think is a little bit surprising, not the fact that Resident Evil is going to get yet another reboot when it comes to a live action film, but the fact that PlayStation Productions is now getting involved, this actually I think is really good because PlayStation Productions so far, as I said earlier, has done very well. They haven't really had some major, screw up when it comes to adapting a game so far. I would say maybe the worst they've done is maybe like with Uncharted, where it didn't like blow people away and it's like, oh my god, this is the best video game adaptation ever, but it also didn't do poorly either. I think a lot of people just saw it and they were like, oh yeah, it's pretty good, not too bad. There's some potential there for sure, for sequels. But Resident Evil, as we know, has really, I think, kind of struggled to find itself in a position where it's getting proper adaptations that fans really feel like, you know what, this is definitely doing the series justice. We know that the original Resident Evil films just kind of turned into a joke, and so it'll be really interesting to see what happens with this since PlayStation Productions is involved. But there you go. I think it's also an interesting sign that Sony is willing to start producing films or live-action versions of games outside of their own first-party projects. Moving on to the final set of topics here, we're talking both about more Xbox games being confirmed to be coming to PlayStation. This is official now, coming from Phil Spencer, but also physical games in the US. But starting with Xbox, this is being reported by Shinobi602 on Twitter. He says a new interview with Gamertag Radio with Phil Spencer. This is what he had to say when asked about first-party games. Quote, "We love our platform and our hardware, but we're not going to put walls up where people can engage with the great games our studios are building. Our games will show up in more places, no doubt," end quote. The next question had to do with Xbox hardware. Phil Spencer responds by saying, quote, "I want people to pick hardware based on the capabilities of that hardware and the choices that they want to make about where they want to play. We want our hardware to win based on the capabilities that we have. Hardware critical and fundamental is fundamental to what Xbox is, not trying to gatekeep the games off different places," end quote. So what makes this even more interesting, though, is Phil Spencer did a second interview with Destin Legary, and there was a specific question that was asked, and that is Destin saying, "Can you solidify that Starfield is staying put for the time being?" The reason why he asked this is because he was talking about Indiana Jones and how there is like a timed exclusivity window there for Indiana Jones. And Phil Spencer answered with a simple no. There is no reason for me to put a ring fence around any game and say that this game will not go to a place that it would find players where it would have business success for us. That is what he said. He followed it up by saying, "What we find is we're able to drive a better business that allows us to invest in a great game lineup. Like you saw during the Developer Direct, our strategy is to allow our games to be available, but to keep games off of other platforms, that's not a path for us. It doesn't work for us." So, yeah, a new round of interviews from Phil Spencer, and he is pretty much confirming. I don't want to say he's confirming the leaks because it's not like he's out here announcing specific games, but all the recent leaks have basically pointed to or just straight up claimed that Microsoft is truly fully third party now. So we got a Developer Direct where PS5 is listed as a platform now for 4 out of the 5 games. Phil Spencer comes out, says you're going to see more games from us on more platforms. And he even acknowledged the Nintendo Switch 2, I believe, in one of these interviews, which, of course, Microsoft's going to start releasing games on the Switch 2. That console's going to do very well, and they're probably going to get good sales. But he also answers a question directly regarding Starfield, saying, like, no, we're not planning on keeping that exclusive. So, I mean, will it end up coming to PS5? It sounds like it. I mean, there was a rumor claiming it's going to come to Switch 2. So, yeah, I mean, this is it, man. This is the year where I think Microsoft just fully rips the Band-Aid off if they haven't already, and they just make it abundantly clear that we are officially a third-party publisher. And he does acknowledge the hardware, so they're still doing that. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this continues to play out going into this year and slowly but surely into next generation. But moving on to the final topic, it has to do with physical video game sales. This is being reported by VGC. They say US spending on physical video games has more than halved since 2021, according to new data from market research firm Circana. Player spending habits have steadily migrated to digital for more than a decade, driven by faster internet speeds, the emergence of online marketplaces on consoles, and live service games funded by microtransactions. According to a new graph showing the past 25 years of US video game software spending, physical games have been cut in more than half since 2021, and they're now more than 85% below the 2008 peak. Overall content spending, including physical and digital, including subscriptions and microtransactions, has increased since 2019, according to Circana data. So this is something that we are continuing to see discussed, and it has to do with physical versus digital video games. The big question that everybody wants an answer to is, when the PlayStation 6 rolls around, is Sony going to go all digital? Well, when we see data like this come out, it makes a lot of people nervous, and it makes them think maybe they are. Maybe it's going to happen sooner than we expected. But it's very important to understand that when we look at the data that shows an increase in digital spending, it's not just digital games, right? It's also subscriptions and microtransactions. And the microtransactions in particular are absolutely massive when you talk about looking at this data. So the truth is, less and less people are buying games physically. But I think something that we need to also understand is there is money to be made in supporting physical games. I think that it would be absolutely absurd for Sony to approach the PlayStation 6 generation thinking that, well, we don't have to produce physical games for the PlayStation 6 anymore. That would be crazy. I think it would be crazy because they're just going to lose money. Not everybody is just going to say, you know what, okay, I'm just going to buy my games physically now. They're going to lose people going to PC. They're going to just lose people in general when it comes to the idea of upgrading. They're going to stay on PS5. There's a lot of people who are just going to stick with retro gaming, and I just think that it's completely unnecessary for Sony to do something like that. Like, they can easily avoid it by just continuing to support physical games. If only 3% of people by 2028 are buying physical games, just support it. What's the big deal? You're still going to make money off of those customers, right? I don't get it. I don't get the idea of just forcing the need for all digital. I know that at the end of the day, maybe it would benefit Sony to cut out the middleman, but if it's already happening and it's going to happen naturally, why force it, right? I would say just try to leave the option there, leave the door open. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what ends up happening. It would be extremely disappointing if the next generation consoles are basically all digital with no physical support. That would be, I would say, pretty crushing to a lot of people. But guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.